It's no secret that the origins of most fairy tales are usually messed up. The name Brothers Grimm didn't come from nowhere. Even so, these freaky fables are probably gonna be enough to give anyone pause. And hey, if you know a good story with a dark side, let us know about it in the comments below. Number 10. The Strangely Stricken Dead. A short Korean ghost story, the tale of the strangely stricken dead is one which has disturbing social implications for how prolifically it has spread. The story goes that the friend of the long-dead General Kim awakens, having dreamed of seeing General Kim riding a horse, armed with a bow and arrow. The friend asks where General Kim is going, and he responds that a thief has entered his home, and he is going to shoot him. He then returns with bloody arrows, claiming that the deed has been done. Disturbed by the dream, the friend goes to visit General Kim's surviving wife, and learns that she was planning to remarry, but upon her new husband entering her home, he was stricken with a heart attack. As fairy tales generally are meant to have morals, this one seems a little dark for me, claiming that wives should never remarry. It's pretty gross, but equally as indicative of social leanings at that time. Number 9. Kikimora. This tale comes from Slavic myths and is pretty darn creepy. See, the Kikimora is a house spirit that acts in relation to the morality of their master or homeowner. Most people aren't directly aware of their Kikimoras, but nevertheless, these spirits have certain ways of making themselves known. Generally described as thin, goblin-esque creatures, Kikimoras are notorious for their habits of kidnapping and drowning their victims. One of their more cruel activities is where they sit on the chest of their sleeping victims. This could have been used as a way to explain the effects of sleep paralysis at the time, or even worse, sleep apnea, which can frequently take the lives of sleeping people before they even know they have it. Number 8. Rapunzel. I'm certain most folks already know most of the aspects of this German tale. A woman with an extraordinarily long set of hair is locked away in a tower with no entrance or exit aside from a single window. Whoever climbs the tower gets to marry her. Simple stuff. The thing is, this story actually has a basis in reality, and it isn't pretty. Looking through the history books, there's an eerily similar story about a woman named Saint Barbara who was exceptionally beautiful. Her father, Dioscorus, tried to hide her away from every single man. A pagan, Dioscorus was horrified to discover that his daughter had become Christian when he decided to let her out, but only to meet other women. He then beheaded her, only for himself to be struck by lightning. How's that for divine retribution? Number 7. Father Frost. A Russian fairy tale, Father Frost is similar to another story you might have heard, but also wildly different. A woman has 2 daughters, one she loves and one she hates. She orders her husband to lead the daughter she hates out into the forest in the middle of winter, which he does. Found by Father Frost, this daughter turns out to be exceptionally kind, and for her kindness, she is rewarded with jewels. When the kind daughter returns with the finery, the woman sends her other daughter out to get more. But that daughter is cruel to Father Frost, so he just leaves her there to die. That's it, that's the entire story. You know, don't be a jerk. Number 6. The Goose Girl. Another Grimm story, the Goose Girl is pretty weird and brutal. As a princess and her maid are traveling together, the maid just kind of goes nuts and threatens to off the princess unless they swap places. So the princess just agrees, and then they do this little song and dance routine for a while where she's like sworn to an oath of secrecy, then breaks the oath by talking to the king and telling the king that she's actually a princess, but she doesn't break that oath because she was actually talking to an iron stove and the king was just listening. Whatever. The point is that the maid is then punished by being dragged around town naked inside of a barrel with inward-facing spikes until she bites the dust. Number 5. Mulan. It would be nice to pretend that Mulan was a super chill story and everything was all hunky-dory like in the Disney movie, but man did the original bite. The effective idea was that it was somehow preparing women for life in feudal China, and it did a pretty good job of ensuring that everyone understood that life in feudal China just kind of sucked. First, she gets married off to a random dude at 13, yikes. Then she joins the war, but they lose, So she goes home and finds out that her father has passed away and her mother has remarried, and she's basically just going to be a concubine. So then she just takes her own life, and her heart is mailed to the emperor that lost. Number 4. Koschei the Deathless. What would you do with immortality? Learn about the world, dedicate your life to mastering the arts, attempt to cure incurable diseases. Well, Koschei the Deathless decided that he'd spend his entire life mastering the art of being a massive jerk. Discovering a spell that would let him hide his soul within an object, Koschei would then run out into the world and try to steal people's wives. That is all he did. Sun up to sundown, just go around and go, hey, you got a wife? Gimme. But there are a bunch of different tales starring this long-lived lowlife, and almost every single one of them features him as the villain. Some have him set up little situations where the hero will revive him, and then he'll do this whole got your nose bit, except the nose is the girl that you're crushing on, and he isn't joking. Interestingly, he never wins, but also can never seem to completely die. I think the only one where he comes close is the time that he turns a girl that doesn't like him into a snake. I don't know, man, the dude's just weird. Number 3. The Little Mermaid. So the premise is simple, you know the deal. The mermaid sees man and goes, wowie zowie, give me some of that. She makes a bad deal to go and meet her love, and then is faced with a choice. See, where the movie ends is with a bunch of fish chilling out and an octopus getting speared in a way that is shockingly brutal for a G-rated flick. The original is a little bit more cold. See, one of the original ideas for the mermaid is the siren, which is sort of a monster that lures sailors to their ends. Being one and the same in mythology, the original Little Mermaid was basically going to do the same thing to her beau, but then realized that she didn't really want to, so she just took her own life instead. Some stories end with her getting a second chance because God's all like, nice bro, but it's pretty dark. Number 2. The Story of Sigurd. Okay, this is a long one, and I do not have anything close to the amount of time needed to properly summarize this. See, The Ring Cycle, an opera based on this story, clocks in at about 15 hours, and because I am a cultured little boy, I've actually seen the entire thing. Either way, some highlights. Sigurd's parents are siblings. Ew. A dwarf curses a ring, a Valkyrie falls in love with Sigurd when he's like 5, also ew. He then grows up under a weird dad who isn't his dad, and then goes off to rescue this Valkyrie because her dad imprisoned her with a dragon, so he rescues her, and then they just both burn alive. The opera is cool, the story's just weird. Number 1. Brer Rabbit. Okay, so Brer Rabbit is a story with some weight. See, these stories have been passed around for a while, so I've got to break it to everyone that their origins are really, really dark. See, the whole idea of a little rabbit running around and getting into trouble is nice. I actually grew up with a bunch of variants of these stories, so did my mom, and one of my favorite toys as a kid was a rabbit doll. So, anyways, these stories were written by African slaves who were trying to adapt stories from various African cultures into forms that could give them hope under the brutal reign of their scummy masters. Most of the Brer Rabbit stories can be traced back to the Akan stories of and a Donko, a trickster spider, and rabbit, respectively. These were eventually co-opted by a bunch of white people who ended up making the Song of the South, a pretty screwed up film that has a lot of racism. Not much else to say there, it's just, there you go. Thanks for watching, please remember to like and subscribe, and have a good one.